In the last lecture, I discussed one aspect of catharsis, and that was purgation theory. I have told you that it is very difficult for the scholars to be unanimous on the meaning and explanation of catharsis. Purgation was one dimension, and this was supported by a group of scholars. But there is another theory also which is associated to the concept of catharsis, and this is known as purification theory. There is difference between purgation and purification. Both are not similar words, both are not similar terms. While in purgation, the emotions are driven out permanently. The entire emotion is driven out permanently, whereas in purification, the entire emotion is not driven out permanently. This is the basic difference between the two. Purification theory is based on moral conditioning. It conditions an individual morally. It maintains balance of emotions. The complete emotion is not driven out. Some part of these emotions, some parts, some portions of these emotions are driven out, and that too not permanently. And this is important for the health of an individual. While explaining purgation theory, I told you that the scholars took hint from Politics, a book by Aristotle. From Politics, they got the support with regard to pathological effect analogous to the effect on soul, whereas the basis of purification theory is another book by Aristotle. Purgation theory was on the basis of Aristotle's politics, and purification theory is based on Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle. Aristotle has written this book.
Repeat again with name.
Nicomachean. Okay, I'm writing down Nicomachean Ethics. Nicomachean Ethics. Nicomachean Ethics. This is a book by Aristotle. I think you have noted down the name of this book, Nicomachean Ethics. Aristotle wrote on politics, he wrote on ethics, he wrote on poetics. He tried his hands on a number of disciplines. He was also a philosopher. So the basis of purification theory is Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle. And certain lines in this book are important to understand the purification theory. And these lines I am going to share with you. Can you see it on the screen? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Can you see it on the screen?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, trying to share the text today with you so that you can understand it better. So this is an extract,
Yes.
Nicomachean Ethics. And you see what the line says. Virtue must have the quality of aiming at the intermediate. I mean moral virtue, for it is this that is concerned with passions and actions, and in these there is excess, defect, and the intermediate. For instance, both fear and confidence, and appetite, and anger, and pity, and in general pleasure and pain may be felt both too much and too little, and in both cases not well, but to feel them at the right times with reference to the right objects, toward the right people, with the right motive, and in the right way is what is characteristic and best, and this is characteristic of virtue. The main point here is that there should be a mean point. There should be a quality of aiming at the intermediate, a mean point. As he talks of passions, as he talks of emotions, he says that emotions should be there, not in excess. Emotion of pity should be there, but not in excess. Emotion of fear should be there. The passion of fear should be there, but it should not be in excess. Because if it takes place in excess, it will make a man unhealthy. It will speak upon his health. So this is not proper. Pity, that is a good thing, no doubt. But it should not happen in excess. Fear is a good
हेलो।
thing.
हाँ भैया, अभी मेरा क्लास चल रहा है, बस 10 मिनट के बाद हम आपको फोन कर रहे हैं।
It disciplines,
अच्छा।
fear disciplines our life. You must have read in Wordsworth the Prelude how Wordsworth is brought up with beauty and fear. Fear is a disciplining element. Therefore, pity should be there, fear should be there, but there should be proper pity and there should be proper fear. It should not be in excess. So, Let me handle this technology. Sharing. Hmm. हो गया. Okay. So, the critics of purification theory say that Aristotle, while giving the definition of tragedy, he does not say catharsis of these emotions. He says catharsis of such emotions. In the definition of, I repeat again the definition where he utters, he says a tragedy is the imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude, in language embellished with each kind of artistic ornament, each kind brought in separately in the separate parts of the work, in the form of action and not in a narrative form with incidents arousing pity and fear, wherewith to accomplish the catharsis of such emotions. So, this purification theory is based on moral conditioning. It ensures that an individual is morally conditioned. It has nothing to do with purgation of soul. Its purpose is moral conditioning only. It involves controlled emotions, neither pity in excess nor fear in excess. Then only there will be moral conditioning. Butcher, a prominent scholar of Aristotle, especially of his poetics, he is in favor of purification theory. Says it has nothing to do with medical science. It has to do with ethics. It has to do with controlled emotion. It has to do with moral conditioning. So, purgation theory is based on Aristotle's book Politics, and there is sufficient evidence with regard to purgation theory even, you cannot say that purgation theory is baseless. There is sufficient evidence in favor of purgation theory. As I have told you that Aristotle's father, he was a physician, and therefore he had, if not profound knowledge of medical science, he had some knowledge of medical science. And therefore, it is very probable that he might have got the meaning of catharsis from there. Therefore, they are correlated. But then there is purification perspective at no purgation, that is doubtful. But you can't say nobody is sure about which theory is very apt. As far as catharsis is concerned. So there comes even the third theory, and this one is known as clarification theory. Clarification theory. Now, this theory is entirely different from purgation theory and purification theory. Now, there is an important scholar, his name I am giving. His name is Gerald F. Els. You can note down.
Sir, what is the spelling of?
I am writing. I am writing. Gerald F. Els. Gerald F. Els. Okay.
There is no same.
Gerald F. Els. Is it not visible?
It will seen after some time. After 1 and 2 3 6.
Yes.
Yes,
Gerald
now it
F.
is.
Els. Gerald F. Got it? Got this word?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Okay.
yes, sir.
And the year was 1957. 1957. Gerald F. Els in the year 1957 gave us clarification theory. And
Please mention the clarification theory.
clarification theory. He came out.
CLEARIFI.
I'm writing. I'm writing. Sorry. Clarification theory. Gerald F. Els in the year 1957 came out with clarification theory. All right? And the scholars of critical clarification theory say that catharsis is not a medical metaphor. And what is said in purgation theory, they say that it is not a medical metaphor. F.L. Lucas also says that theater is not a hospital. All right? Theater is not a hospital. Theater is a different genre. It's not hospital. That he might have used the term catharsis thinking of pathological effect and all. And then this group of scholar also believes, is it a moral science that purification theory is out? This is moral conditioning and all. So clarification theory came into being, and it focuses on a different concept. It is based on the concept of tragic joy. Tragic joy. Today, scholars are one with clarification theory. They don't give weightage to they don't give weightage to purgation theory or purification theory. They give weightage to clarification theory. And in clarification theory, tragic joy is involved. They believe that joy is found not only in comedy, in tragedy also, it is very much there. Pleasure, joy, these elements are very much there, even in tragedy. Macbeth, for example, he is the hero of Shakespearean tragedy. But when he is killed, we jump out of joy. We derive pleasure out of it because the man had committed a heinous crime. by killing the King Duncan. And after assassination of the King Duncan, he had assassinated a number of people. He killed even the children of Banco, was his friend. Because of the prophecy of the witches that Banquo's sons will become the king of Scotland. So Banquo's small children were butchered. So he assassinated a number of people, and therefore, finally, when he is killed, we derive pleasure, we derive joy out of it. And this joy is known as tragic joy. Tragic joy. It is believed that Aristotle has talked about art. He has not talked about hospital. He has not talked about moral science. So catharsis should be seen as a technique. It is a technique. It is a poetic technique which should be adopted by the dramatist. And this technique should be an integral part of the text. It should be an integral part of the plot. The plot should be created in such a way that the readers, that the spectators derive joy out of it, even though it is tragic joy. So, in the present time, most of people agree to the clarification theory. However, while making discussion on catharsis, you should take into account all the theories: purgation theory, purification theory, and clarification theory. Then only your answer is a complete one. If you take up only purgation theory or purification theory or clarification theory, your answer will be lopsided. It won't be a complete answer. So you have to make discussion with all the theories related to catharsis. It is a different thing whether you agree to purgation theory or purification theory or clarification theory. What I personally feel after going through all this analysis I'm mostly with the theory of purgation, not with the theory of purification or the theory of clarification. All right? I support purgation theory, not the other two theories. So it is up to you anyway, but in the answer, you have to discuss all, and finally, you may give your conclusion that I personally feel that this theory is the best one, and I think Aristotle must have this theory in mind when he defined tragedy and included the term catharsis in it. There would not have been so much of so many opinions if the second part of poetics had not been lost. It is all because the second part of poetics is not available to us. Since it is lost, there is no unanimous opinion. All seem to be true because they are all with some some supporting texts. They have their own arguments, but your personal analysis is also important, and that is all. The concept of catharsis, Aristotelian concept of catharsis, I think you have understood all that I talked about. And now, question time. If you have any question related to it, because I have finished Aristotle's poetics, discussion on Aristotle's poetics. Next, I shall be taking up Train to Pakistan, the fiction and the film.
Sir, sir,
Yes, yes.
hello. Sir, so, how can we prepare our answer based on Aristotle the bodies? What is the question?
Pardon?
Which type of sir? I mean, say which type of question asked?
See, critically examine Aristotle's concept of catharsis.
Yes, sir.
Critically examine Aristotle's concept of catharsis, or critically examine Aristotle's concept of mimesis. Two important terms. Okay? If you prepare these two,
Sir, hello.
that is sufficient, I think, from the examination point of view. Either of the two will be there. If concept of mimesis is not there, concept
Sir,
of catharsis
critically,
must be there. They are so important.
Sir, sir, Aristotle
sir,
concept of catharsis, and another is
Aristotle's concept of mimesis that we discussed earlier. Okay, should I leave now? Hello.
Sir, tomorrow you will, yes, today is the last class of poetics.
Today is the last class. Today is the last class. Okay, good night.
Sir, tomorrow,
Tomorrow same time, 8 o'clock. Okay. Hello.
okay, sir. Yes, sir. Tomorrow, you will start train to Pakistan by Pushpansi.
Yes, train to Pakistan by Khushwant.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, good night.
Good night.